Hi, Wasteland Armor here, again with another fun video. So today's video will be just exclusively a talking one, so if that bores you, probably go ahead and skip it. But I just thought of kind of a fun concept to discuss. Been thinking about the Italian Alpine front in World War I and the rifles used. What originally got me thinking about it was actually Sabaton has a song called Soldier of Heaven about it, and I ended up looking into it more and found some really interesting stuff. So what I've noticed in the pictures from that front, so the fighting looked pretty brutal and pretty nasty. Extremely steep mountains, crawling around on rocks, and primarily Austrians and Italians. There were some other groups that fought in it, but those were the main ones. And I noticed an assortment of rifles. So the most common ones I notice in pictures are Carcano M91 long rifles, and then for the Austrians, Mannlicher M1895 long rifles. You do see a fair number of carbines of both rifle types also, a little bit less than the long rifles, but they were definitely there. Also, for the Austrians, I had noticed that you'll see some 1888 Mannlichers and their variants, and even occasionally some oddballs like Mannlicher Schnauzers, which I could only assume they must have pulled from Steyr from inventory, but hard to say on that. And then also for the Italians, I've also seen a few photos where they've got Vetterli Carcanos, so they were using those as well. But these are the two main rifle types that you'll come across. So I'd just like to do a little comparison of the two and talk about maybe which one I would prefer. I also did some polls on this stuff. So to start with, they have some similarities, particularly in their magazine system. They both use Mannlicher and blocks. This is the Carcano clip, and this would just go into the rifle, and then on chambering last round, that steel clip just falls out the bottom. And this is your M95 Mannlicher clip, and same story. So this is probably a good part to start on, would just be the ammunition the respective guns use and their feeding mechanisms. So for the ammo, this is some Norma modern production Carcano, but the original load was a 160 grain bottle nose round bullet, and it was doing about 2,300 feet per second. So kind of slow for a 6.5, but pretty heavy projectile. And I've heard they handled wind well. And then for the 8x50R, it was a 244 grain bullet at approximately 2,000 feet per second. So heavy bullet, really slow, even by World War I standards. Now this is 8x50R Mannlicher ammunition, but this is kind of weird stuff. These are Spitzers, obviously. I got this from Liberty Tree Collectors, and it's actually a segmented bullet inside. They said it was training, which I'm not sure if that's actually correct because it seems to be coming out at full velocity, and I'm able to make 100-yard shots with it. I'm wondering if maybe it was guard duty ammo. It's World War II vintage, and it's remans from World War II, so kind of sketchy ammo, but it works. I've shot a little bit of it. Kind of funny thing is that Castos Curious started making it right after I bought some of this, so go figure I'd end up not getting the new production, but hope to get some of that soon. As far as the clips, so in theory the Carcano should have an advantage in this regard. It holds 6 rounds instead of 5, but the big thing is you can insert it either way. There's no top or bottom on it. For the Mannlicher, it goes this way in. You cannot feed it the other way, it doesn't work. That being said, actually on this area, I still give the Mannlicher the edge. The reason being, I have yet to have a Carcano clip that works very well. This one, out of several I own, is the best one that I have, and even it still has some issues. I have yet to have one of these that does not work correctly. Also, shooting fast and running and gunning, I have not had any issues trying to put these in upside down. I think it's about like trying to put an AK-47 mag in upside down. It just is not that hard to avoid. It'd be nice if it was reversible, but to me it's not that big of a deal, and the reliability is huge. I don't want my gun to just stop working. So on that part of the verses, I'll give it to the Mannlicher. As far as the cartridge, which is better though, I'd probably have to say the Carcano had the better round. They were both kind of obsolete at the time, but the 6.5 is just going to be flatter shooting and lighter recoil. And so I live in a mountainous region, and having that flatter shooting cartridge is going to be nice. Just from my experience, that is definitely an advantage. So what are some other characteristics of these things? Well, one thing I've noticed with both the Austrian and the Italian guns is they're very light. Both are remarkably light compared to a lot of their contemporaries. And I think that that may have something to do with the fact that those nations knew they might have to fight in the mountains. Yeah, if you've lived in a mountainous region and hiked around in steep hills, you know that light gun is nice. So as far as weight, I mean, obviously this is a cavalry carbine versus a long rifle. I don't have a Carcano long rifle at the moment, but they're probably comparable for weight. The Austrian one might actually be slightly lighter, but not by much. I do like that the Austrian Mannlichers have a semi-pistol grip. It just makes target acquisition a little bit quicker. So let's talk some other features. So the Carcano obviously is a turn bolt action, so you have to lift up, pull back, then to close you just push it forward, push down. Now the Carcanos have kind of notoriously gritty actions. Bolts on the ejector or grease on the ejector can relieve that problem a little bit, but it's a pretty rough action overall. The triggers are so-so. The safeties are kind of clunky, but they work. Very positive. The actions are incredibly strong on them and very durable. So as far as that goes, there's no problems with that. The biggest complaint I actually have on the Carcano, though, is got to be their sights. And I'm going to show you just a little white line I painted on that. So you can see how it's inside of the V. So on this gun, I lined the top of my front sight up with that little white line. You have to pull your front sight all the way to the bottom of the V, and the sights on that is just a crappy sight picture for trying to make a precise shot. It's relatively quick, but I don't feel like it's really quicker than a regular type of V-notch sight, and it is far coarser. Having that line painted actually helps a little bit because it gives me a reference point, but that wasn't originally there. So as far as sights go, I'm giving the Carcano sights an F, hard F. Now on the Mannlicher, their actions are obviously that kind of unique straight pull. It's kind of hard to do at this angle. They're fairly slick, but they do take some force. Yeah, see at this angle, I don't know if I can even do it with one hand. There we go. But if you work them quickly, it's very fast. They're not hard to work when you work them fast, but if you're babying it, they definitely are meant to have some oomph. And it uses a rotating bolt head, so there's like helical grooves cut inside. So it's actually also a very strong action. They were later updated to 8x56R, but that was after World War I. I mean, that cartridge would definitely be a better mountain cartridge, I'd add. Sight-wise on these, this gun's from RTI. It's missing its slider, but it's just your typical kind of leaf sight up to ladder up to 2,600 yard, or Schritt, I believe, actually, which is, I think, something like 3/4 of a yard, so it's an odd imperial measurement that they used. Now, down in the battle sight, that's 500 Schritt, but if you flip it up, which it's a 300 Schritt, which is like 232 yards, roughly. So that actually isn't too bad for a rifle of that era. You can be pretty close to point of aim. The sights are small, so the sight picture is not great. However, it's leagues better than the Carcanos. I would take this any day, sight-wise, over the Carcano. As far as straight pull versus turn bolt, that's kind of a preference thing. I prefer the straight pull. Now, I know the Canadian Ross had some problems with when they'd get hot, they'd bind up. I've really not heard of Mannlichers having the same issue, including when I've shot mine. They just seem to be pretty reliable guns overall. The Mannlichers do have a tendency to break their extractors, which isn't good. Carcanos can as well, but it's more of a problem on the Mannlicher. And that's really the only part of these guns that is, I've noticed to really seem to be a problem child. The safety on the Mannlicher is much easier to use. It's just this little guy on the side there that blocks the cocking piece. So overall, just definitely some similarities and differences. If I had to pick between the two, though, I think that the Mannlicher wins for me in pretty much every category except cartridge. And as a fighting rifle, I think then I'm going to have to say I would pick the Mannlicher. And I know the Italians had a lot of respect for these guns. They actually wrote a song called Ta Pum about them. So I think if you're writing a song about your enemy's gun, there's something they're doing right. And then, just kind of as proof too, that's an Italian AOI capture mark with some Ethiopian trench art next to it. So the Italians weren't shy of using these things too when they could get their hands on them. And that also kind of speaks to if the people you're fighting against, you capture their rifles and are willing to use them, it probably got something going for them. My understanding is the Mannlichers were harder to manufacture, so there is the strategic difference there, but I don't know how big of a difference ultimately that made. But yeah, overall, I just think that they're both neat. They're interesting testaments to the type of warfare they're expected to be in, just mountainous warfare. And they both are actually fairly well optimized for their intended roles. Well, I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe if you like this type of content. And then I absolutely love seeing comments in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Wasteland Armor out.